Okay, good morning. It's 9:30. I have a lot on my plate today. We have a short meeting today, as you guys know last time when I chaired it. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 9:31. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have more than 6 voting members here, so we do have a quorum if needed, but we're not going to need it. You guys all received a copy of the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections or updates? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Any public comments not on the agenda?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. Brian Champion, Mountain Metro Transit. Last month I did an update or requested questions and comments on our Section 5310 program management plan. And I just wanted to review some of the comments or the questions that were asked I didn't have answers to. So one of the questions is, will the PMP be brought before the City Council? And the response is no, the City Council does not review or no action is required on this. The second question is, what City Council representative is assigned to transit? And the follow-up response is, no City Council member is assigned to the Transit Division. However, Yolanda Avila, a City Council member, represents the City of Colorado Springs at the PPACG Board of Directors. And a large portion of that is transportation. Joe asked a question of where can the Section 5310 budget be found, and I directed him to look at the Public Works Department transit budget, and it is there, but it's really not apparent. It's collapsed into all grants that we receive. So if you like, Joe, I can send you the 5310 program application, which describes how much money we received and what it's for. And then after the meeting, Jolene asked in a telephone conversation, how and why is a FTA drug and alcohol program required of the city's contract transportation providers when FTA funds are not passed through to pay for specialized transportation? And so in a written response, we said FTA drug and alcohol regulations apply to all contract service providers who stand in the shoes of a transit system. Since Since human service providers stand in the shoes of Mountain Metropolitan Transit when providing specialized transportation service as an FTA-compliant drug and alcohol program is required. And then we had a comment period between when I presented this, I think it was the 28th of May, and June 4th. We didn't receive any comments through our email transit info line. So, again, I just wanted to wrap that up. So, thank you.
So I'm going to follow up on that because the city did release a new RFP for specialized transportation that affects all of our client base here. The original window was 8 days. It was extended, and they had another question and answer period, and more 5310 questions came up because in the program management, the PMP guide that Brian brought at the last meeting did talk about competitive grant process and the timelines for that. So once again, the subcontractors with the city are being held to all FTA standards, and the city is not again. They said that 5310 in their public comments did not apply to this grant, even though 5310 funds are used for part of the call center. So again, the HSPs or subcontractors are being held to standards that the city is not necessarily holding themselves to.
Let me try to respond to that. The PMP applies to the Section 5310 program. So if there was a call for projects, it would follow the procurement process outlined in the PMP. The emergency contract that the city put out on the street is not part of the Section 5310 program, in that 5310 wouldn't be spent on that contract.
Are any of the funds used that fund the rides part of the match for those 5310 funds?
That's a question.
Because if they're used as a match, the city should be held to the same standards if those funds are being used to match.
Okay. Well, I don't know
I
the
asked
answer.
that in the question, and it wasn't answered publicly in that.
Okay.
So, and on that note, the emergency RFP that went out was an emergency on the city side. The HSPs have been asking regarding contracts and promised the contracts on April 22nd, and we didn't receive them till June. And Fountain Valley Senior Center is applying to continue. We've been with PPRTA funded rides since its inception in 2006. So is Silver Key, and we want to ensure that the seniors and disabled in our community still are receiving the rides that they were promised when they voted this tax increase. Under the new RFP, there could be for-profits providing rides with mandatory fares for the seniors and disabled in our community. And they would have to be paying $3.50 per ride, which is very discerning to me because I know that over 90% of my population that comes to the senior center on a daily basis cannot afford the $3.50 to go to a doctor's office. And rides have already been prioritized by the City of Colorado Springs, and it's no longer a priority to take seniors to senior centers, the disabled to day programs.
Well, let me respond to some of that. There was a trip priority that the city implemented January 1st. In the past, the money that was allocated to each HSP was typically spent through before the end of the year. So to continue the activity of the call center and to provide funding throughout the year, the city went to a trip purpose as a way to spread the money throughout each of the 12 months. Those trip purposes are trips to dialysis, medical appointments, education, and work. The city saw that as providing some level of essential services. There is other funding in the community. In fact, it's more than what one ride or the city has through specialized transportation, and it's through AAA. And that money is specifically earmarked for seniors and can be used to provide trips to senior centers, grocery stores, religious activities, other very important quality of life issues. So between the two sources, the AAA can only be spent on seniors. Funding through one ride can be spent on people with disabilities and seniors. And so that's what the city chose to do, to allocate funding throughout the year. It doesn't mean the trips aren't important to senior centers, but there are other funding sources for that.
So I'd just like to make one more comment to that. So up until July 1 of this year, we didn't have the call center. So that $400,000, that's the shortfall for the senior centers and day programs, were covered by the HSPs. Regardless if there's a shortfall at the end of the year, we ate the cost. And so now what happened is that money shifted from rides to the call center. So if you look at a budget, the money hasn't changed, but there's less rides being provided with that money.
But that's not exactly accurate. The city, over the past several years, has allocated about $800,000 for specialized transportation. We allocated $800,000 this year. The money that runs the call center, and the city was very clear in all the presentations we made and in the planning up to a call center, is for the first year it will cost money, additional money. As the idea between a consolidated call center is, instead of having all the HSPs, and that's the only providers we have now, instead of each of them running a call center, staffed with reservationists and schedulers, that function would be consolidated into one center with fewer people, and so the cost to provide a trip, at least the administrative overhead, would be reduced. That's the idea between a call center. That was the idea between a call center when the 4 HSPs established a nonprofit to do it. Same thing when it shifted over to PPACG, and then they asked us to take it over. It's been the same concept. So until there's some reduction in the administrative overhead at the HSPs, there will be additional costs. And that's what the Section 5310 money goes to. It's not the money that has been traditionally used for trips. That has been the same. So over the last 10 years, the city has allocated about $8 million to the 4 HSPs for specialized transportation. It's going to continue at that same level at least next year.
I think that's being generous, saying the city's allocated $800,000. $535,000 of that is directly from PPRTA, and that is the
Yes.
only money being allocated to actual rides being given is the $535,000.
Well, that's actually not correct either, because a large portion of that goes to fund fixed route, which provides millions of trips. It also goes to fund
No, the
the
line
88
item on PPRTA for specialized transportation is $535,000.
Okay, but there's a pool of money for RTA that's designated for public transportation. A large portion goes to fixed route. A large portion goes to fund the ADA complimentary paratransit, which provides rides for disabled individuals. And the remainder is for above and beyond, what goes to the HSPs.
So I would like to note that I did present at PPRTA last week, and there will be future presentations at county commissioners and the City of Colorado Springs City Council. There should be great concerns in the community regarding senior transportation, transportation for the disabled. So I have full board support in moving forward, and if your agencies would like to advocate for your members, please get in touch with me, and if you don't have my business card, I'd be more than happy to share.
Brian, I had a question about the Jillian had mentioned the new proposal has a fee associated with riders. Is that for everybody, or is that just for non-seniors who?
Yeah, that would, well, the city expects passengers to help offset the cost of transportation. So a trip 1 to 5 miles may cost the city to reimburse an HSP between $25 and $35. The city asks that a passenger pay $3.50 to help offset it. Some of the missions of the HSPs say they won't collect a fare, and so what we've done is, or in the case of Medicaid, where the city has subsidized that trip, an agency cannot charge a fare for that, because the fare is considered included in the Medicaid contribution. So what the city has asked is that a $3.50 fare, although it may not be collected from the passenger at the point of the trip, be deducted from the invoice that the HSP send to us, which we have done that. Now, if an HSP built that cost into the trip cost, then it shouldn't have been a hardship on them, because it's part of the cost per trip that they said it cost them to provide.
So going forward, folks will not be asked for $3.50 at the door then?
The HSPs oftentimes ask for a voluntary contribution.
Right. Which is what we're required to do with our men.
Yeah, understood.
But I think Joe's asking that if a for-profit wins this contract, could a fare be mandatory to get on the bus?
It wouldn't be mandatory, and we don't look at the difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit in that way. Part of the call center and part of the 2040 plan said to bring in more providers. Some of those providers could be for-profits. There might be a reduction in the cost of a trip, which would benefit all passengers, and that we could provide more trips if the cost per trip is lower.
Turn your microphone on, Jeff.
This is Gail Nels with Invita. So as an HSP provider, it was not clear in that RFP that we were to not only deduct what we were receiving from Medicaid, but also to deduct a $3.50 from our cost per ride. Thereby, maybe, let's just do simple math here, if we're charging $30 a ride, that then essentially we're then only getting $20 of that. And so we're out some money delivering services. And we are quite dissatisfied with the way the city transit has unilaterally decided that trip purpose is some method for restricting services to our community. I believe this is a policy decision and it does not belong at city transit. We've brought this up with the FTA and they agree it's really more of a policy decision, and I think we will be escalating that as we speak. Invita has, after implementation of the amendment to the contract delivering services, that frankly disenfranchised people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that no longer fell under your definition of a ride that they deserved, amounted to approximately 225 rides per month that Invita underwrote as a commitment to our community, thereby costing Invita approximately $30,000. We are really dissatisfied with having to absorb that cost within our organization, as it further restricts who we can provide rides to. And just so you know, as the city and people here in the community should know that the Independent Center is looking into this, TRE is unhappy, we're unhappy, and we may be escalating and asking for emergency funding from Pikes Peak United Way to offset our costs. Additionally, in the manner in which our contract was terminated, it did not allow enough time or respect to the community we serve. The service plans are basically a legal document that these individuals with the service plan are entitled to these services, and to not allow a smooth transition, I thought was disrespectful. We brought that up to Mr. Green a few weeks ago. I do think it is incumbent upon City Transit to be more inclusive and thoughtful in how they are respecting the community we serve.
And I do have one more comment, because this mandatory fares, in the RFP language from the City of Colorado Springs, it explicitly states, service provider contracts are required to collect fares for specialized transportation services. A fare of $3.50 per trip will be deducted from the service provider's contract monthly invoice. There's two questions in the addendum asking that, and it's similar answers that Brian gave here today that are not direct answers. And if people are building the cost into their budget, that budget is fraudulently built under the new requirements that you guys put forth.
So as a follow-up to Gail, will Invita be providing trips that were outlined in the service plan?
Yesterday I had a meeting with Laura Thompson, the program director of case managers over at TRE, and Invita has committed to providing rides for the month of July, so these people are not disenfranchised, and the impact to not only the rider and their family is minimalized. There's great anxiety in the community in the way this was handled. So to answer your question, yes. Are we angry about it? Yes. Is it expensive for us? Yes. We'll be seeking reimbursement in other manners.
Thank you. We've also been working with TRE, but have not had direction from them as of yet. The city has committed to providing transportation for those under a Medicaid service plan that we have formally subsidized to Invita for at least 1 to 2 months. And so we didn't want to have, since we didn't know if Invita would provide those trips, we didn't want to have 2 buses show up at the same time.
I am really disappointed that City Transit failed to listen to our comments regarding what a service plan is. As contract administrators, I didn't feel that you, as an agency or a public agency, understood the consequences of what a service plan is and does. We sought to advise you on numerous occasions, and what I can see as a result is a lack of understanding on City Transit part of what is a service plan.
Brian, could I ask, kind of back to my original question, because and this is completely self-serving to those of us that fund AAA rides, but in hearing what Jolene said, I'm still unclear as to whether a fare would be collected on seniors at the bus, or whether that's just deducted from the monthly invoice.
From each of the invoices we receive from our service contract providers, the fare is deducted from the invoice.
So we won't be asking a 70-year-old at the bus to pay $350 if it's a AAA funded ride.
If it's-
AAA-funded rides should not be going through the one-ride call center, so no AAA-funded rides would be charged.
And that's the net result. That's kind of what I'm trying to find out. Does that mean that AAA-funded rides are completely out of the call center?
Although we would like to, because that would be active support from PPACG for a call center, right now they don't. At least some of them don't.
Because obviously, we don't have that option. We cannot charge a fare by statute, so.
And the HSPs won't share that data with the city because anything put into Trapeze is owned by them. And they just recently shared Gail's complete rides and trip purpose and street addresses publicly on the RFP, barely skirting HIPAA laws by removing just enough information to be legal. And so I know I don't want my data shared like that publicly, and it just gives a glowing reason why there's distrust with the city having access to all of our ride data.
But that data is used. There were no street addresses. There was a street name, and so it's for a procurement. So it went out to those that are interested in proposing to provide specialized transportation, and it gives them the best idea of where the trips are, the frequency and time.
It could
So
have
they
been
can-
consolidated data with mileage, trip purposes. That was pretty detailed data to be released publicly.
But
So,
it wasn't released publicly.
Anybody can sign on and look at that RFP. There's no, like, Joe Blow down the street just has to put in an email address.
this is Gail with Invita again. I was very concerned that although City Transit might have met the legal definition of privacy and security of personal data, it certainly was not ethical. I think because it was on a public website and people could go into that website and they could see the address and the level of service. I think we all understand what a vulnerable population we serve when seemingly adults have the mental capacity of a 3-year-old. I think this was disrespectful again to the community and unethical.
Okay, any other public comments? So we'll move on to item number 4, discussion items. There was talk at the last couple of meetings about planning a public event for 2019 to showcase the coordination committee and our different transportation options. However, there were 0 sign-ups for that. Oh, there was one.
That's not correct, Jolene.
Sorry. That was the information relayed. Brian did generously volunteer to help coordinate it. So if we do want the event to take off, he would need assistance because he shouldn't have to shoulder that entire burden himself. Is there anyone that's interested in assisting Brian, or would you guys prefer to table this for possibly 2020?
Yeah.
Don't everyone speak up at once. So, yeah. So
and
we'll table this until Marley comes back, and we could look at potentially doing it. I think, it is July 1 next month, so doing an event this year is really time sensitive. So maybe we look at, showcasing at some senior fairs or something next year. And Brian, if it is next year, I'd be happy to help you. But right now, I have your RFP due at 2, so I can't really think beyond 2 p.m. today. And next will be on the provider presentations. And today we have Teller Senior Coalition and Teller County here to present. And Diana Van Auken.
If that's okay.
I'm Diana Van Auken, and I'm the Transportation Manager at Teller Senior Coalition. And Ted was not able to make it today, and I certainly cannot speak about all the services that Ted provides, but I will mention how we tie our transportation services in together. I've got a handout going around, just a little bit of information. Teller Senior Coalition is a nonprofit organization, and we were established in 1996 to assist seniors and disabled residents in Teller County. The services that we provide, kind of a quick overview, we have case management services where our case manager does go out in the home and assesses clients, their needs, provides referral services, ties them into the community for services that are available out there. We do home delivered meals, which are weekly frozen and or shelf stable meals. Caregiver respite, we provide respite support for our caregivers in order to allow them to get their errands run, to get away from the home for a little bit so they can get their stuff done. We do have handyman services where we do some repairs in the home. And then we have also a new program over the last year, homemaker services, where we assist with the light-duty housekeeping, meal preparation, and laundry services in the home. Our transportation is provided to age 60 plus, our low-income disabled, general public, and we are a Medicaid, non-emergency medical transportation provider. I've got a picture in your packet of our Forester. We just received a new Forester that we purchased with PPACG funds, so thank you very much. We provide transportation to the general public, but we have changed our logo on our vehicle. We're now TSC Transit, and part of the reason for that is we do have a lot of seniors in our community that are 60 plus, but they don't consider themselves seniors. So we're really excited to be able to hopefully have more ridership from the 60 plus population, and so we're changing our logo on the majority of our vehicles. So we're really excited about that. The trifold is the third attachment here, and this also has a picture of our Braun Intervan that we were able to obtain through a 5311 grant, and so we are changing or replacing a lot of our older vehicles, and we had quite a few that we're moving forward with that. We do have 7 vehicles, 3 are wheelchair accessible. We provide door-to-door and door-through-door services when requested, and our services go from Cripple Creek, Florissant, Divide. We also go into Cascade, Green Mountain Falls, and then, of course, Woodland Park. We do provide a lot of transportation for medical and dental appointments in Colorado Springs, also in Divide and Woodland Park. We also provide transportation for essential needs, grocery shopping, bank, senior center trips, daybreak, pharmacy, and all of those. We also provide activity transportation for the senior center and for our Forest Ridge Senior Living Center. We also have a public shuttle, which runs on Wednesday and Friday. Our fixed bus route picks up riders at apartment complexes throughout Woodland Park, our mobile home parks, and our assisted living centers, and we stop at the essential services, grocery shopping, Walgreens, Goodwill, Senior Center, the library. We also go down to Green Mountain Falls to pick up riders and bring them back into Woodland Park to go through the fixed bus route. And on Wednesday, we do connect with Cripple Creek Transit. Cripple Creek Transit picks up riders in Victor, goes into Cripple Creek Aspen Mine, picks up riders there, and then comes down through Divide and stops at the medical center there in Divide. And then they connect with us at the library on Wednesday mornings. And the Cripple Creek riders will then get on our fixed bus route, and we'll take them throughout our fixed bus route services. And then we also have riders in Woodland Park. They get on the Cripple Creek Transit, go back up to Cripple Creek to spend the day, and enjoy Cripple Creek. So so we have that connection, and then we do meet back up with them at 1:30 in the afternoon. Couple of things going on for us that we're really excited about. We do have a new dispatch software. It's been live for 6 weeks now. We use Paraplan. This has really improved our efficiency, the ease of scheduling. We used a Google Calendar before. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but we're really excited. We're getting lots of data that we're able to use now, and so that is working really well for us. We are adding mobile devices this week for our drivers, so that's the next step in that exciting process for us. We did receive a 5311 award for another Braun Intervan next year, so we'll be adding to our fleet. We have been increasing our marketing efforts a lot, hoping to increase our ridership. We are exploring the need for an inner-city commuter route to Lake George to be able to provide transportation for the eastern side of Park County. And then we are planning an inner-city commuter route into Colorado Springs. So we're hoping to expand our transportation services. Does anyone have any questions? Or yes?
When you deliver meals, are they delivered in a van that has your logo, or are they delivered in a separate car?
Van with our logo.
Okay, because that was a real problem with Meals on Wheels. They did not deliver in any kind of, with the logo, because people were embarrassed.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I don't know, I know people who wouldn't use them because they were embarrassed, so then they delivered with just without the logo. So I just thought I would ask.
It's a good point. Good point.
Sharon, I might just comment on that. I believe that if the vehicle or the meals are funded through Older American Act funds, it has to be noted that way. I mean, you can see on the back of this particular vehicle there's something, and I think that's a requirement of whether the vehicle or the meals are funded. They have to be noted that way.
They have to be, okay. Because I know my aunt and uncle had problems. We were going to try to get them, and then they said, okay, we will deliver it without the logo, and that would be the only way they would take it.
And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, this is pretty,
Yeah.
something like what you're seeing here is fine.
Okay.
In regard to Silver Key Meals on Wheels, since I've been doing that for 5 years, we use our own vehicles, so we're
Yeah,
not going
that's
to put
it.
any signs on them or anything.
Yeah, that's it. That's what
you
they
don't
were.
want your car wrapped with their logo?
No,
Right.
if they would paint it first, it would be nice, but
Okay. Okay.
So Diane, I noticed that you're using the Braun minivan. Have you any issues with the clearance of that vehicle on some of the more rural roads in Teller County?
We have not had any issues at this point. We've not had it out on the winter roads, so that's still to be seen.
Okay.
We are very aware, though, with all of our vehicles as to the difficulty of a lot of the driveways that we do have, so we'll just have to take that all into consideration, but we haven't yet. Have you guys?
Well, I know we've looked at them and we were curious, we're like, well, that's really low clearance if you have a ramp in them, and so we have not gone that way, but we'd like to because it's a much less expensive vehicle and people like it, but, so keep us posted. Let us know in November, December, and January what that looks like. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably be trading out another vehicle to pick them up and get them in.
That's what I'm, thank you. Thank you.
Diana, what would you consider your biggest challenges, just overall?
Biggest challenges, probably ability to hire more drivers.
So staffing issues.
Staffing, yeah. We do have a couple of volunteers, drivers. I have 7 part-time drivers. The need is definitely increasing, and so we need to consider all of that and see what we can do with our growth. Now that we've been able to get some vehicles replaced and and with our marketing, I think that'll be our biggest challenge is staffing.
I know I've had this conversation with several providers relative to staffing, and to Joe's, I'm glad Joe's still volunteering because the generation behind you is not quite as benevolent in that regard.
Yeah.
And they also, one of the things that I think enters in there is a lot of those folks that are coming up that are just now retiring do not have defined benefit pensions like the generation ahead of them had, and it's really impacting the volunteer workforce significantly.
Yep. 5 years out.
So next is the calendar of calendar of organizations to present, and the next presenter. It wasn't, sorry, I have it. So next month on Tuesday, July 23rd, good thing Gail's here because it's in Vita, and Waukesha signed you guys up. Next MCC meeting.
I don't think that would be fair to fill right now. Could we postpone that for at least a couple months?
Victoria, would you be willing to trade with her July for August? No pressure as we all look at you.
Yeah. Oh, I see up there. Okay.
It's just a brief presentation over your organization. Okay, so we'll trade Invita and Silver Key. Nice to see that collaboration expand all boundaries. So next is training, information sharing, and coordination opportunities. Since I'm so shy, I'll start. We did get a brand new bus delivered on Thursday, funded by PPACG in their carryover requests. It's a transit van, and we were able to get it for a steal because we took a 2016, and so it's brand new, but a 2016, and it's really great because the seating arrangement in it, you can put 4 wheelchairs, and the chairs are so easy to move in that vehicle, so it's really, really nice. So thank you, AAA funding. Any other information shares?
Thank you. Wanted to mention a training opportunity. Davy Coach in Sedalia is doing an open house on August the 9th, and during that open house, they're doing a lot of free training. And we have staff that's going up. The ones that we're attending is wheelchair lift maintenance. Braun Ability is going to be there. Pre-trip inspection of the vehicle, Davy Coach maintenance staff is actually going to provide that. And then wheelchair securement, Q Strength's going to be there. So, and there's some other training opportunities. We're just not going to the other ones. There's air conditioning and heating and maintenance and that sort of stuff. Yes, yeah. So, and then they're also going to introduce the Davy Coach mobile service truck. So they've been talking about that for a while, so I'm really excited to see what is included in that. And I also wanted to mention that the Golden Bridge Network, which is a group of agencies in Teller County that provide senior services, they're sponsoring an annual senior expo, and that is on Saturday, August the 10th from 9 to 3. It's at the Mountain View United Methodist Church, and they're having a lot of presentations for seniors. Vendors are invited to be there, and then they're providing lunch. If anyone would like any brochures, I have some with me, so we're really excited about that. Thank you.
And on the flip side of my announcements earlier, since we are the Mobility Coordination Committee, I think PPACG and AAA should be applauded for increasing transportation funding this next funding cycle. What percentage did you increase it, Joe?
I don't remember the exact number.
It was a
but It was
lot.
in the 60s.
Yeah.
65-ish%.
So there's going to be, so no matter how much funding this community has, we'll never meet the actual need. There's so much need out there. So it's just greatly appreciated by the boots on the ground that we can provide that many more rides for seniors in this upcoming year so that they're able to age in their homes as they wish. So thank you.
And I would comment that's funding that's provided. I don't know the best way to put this. It's technically it's short-term funding
Yes.
because it's an overage that the state was able to put into the Older Coloradans Fund, so it's not going to be there forever, but it's there for the next 2 to 3 years, assuming that the state authorizes does a spending authorization on it.
I thought it was good news that they're forecasting the surplus at the state budget level. At least the report from June was in. And Invita would like to thank also the AAA. We have also received a vehicle that we will be using to help in El Paso County. It looks like the monument area as well as Yoder. And so thank you very much, and we appreciate the partnership we've had. We're also looking at, maybe not relevant to this committee, but working more with the home care out there as well and combining these kinds of services. So thank you.
As much as we love to accept all these things, know that our funding is a
Yes.
giant roller coaster these days. So
But this is a fun ride right now.
don't expect it next year.
Under information sharing, though, Gail, weren't you just directly awarded money from the FTA?
Yes, Invita is excited to report that we went after an Innovation and Coordination Mobility Grant, and we were awarded like almost $250,000 to work in Teller County on behavioral and substance use disorder. We'll be working with the EMT vehicles up in Ute Valley and the southern other part of the county, I forget what they call it, and with the hospital system, UC Health, as well as the Ray, and working to provide better health outcomes and services for the people. I think many of you know that Invita has a personal relationship with what mental health can look like, and so we are proud to get this grant and see if we can support the community in any way. And we are, of course, working with people like Teller Senior and others up there. So we're really proud of that opportunity to work at a national level and demonstrate what that might look like.
So I just realized I completely failed chairing this meeting because I forgot to do introductions, and there are new faces here. So, Joe, can you start?
Joe Urban Area Agency on Aging.
Brian Champion, Mountain Metro Transit.
Joe Vaccaro, Community at Large.
Jolene Houseman, Fountain Valley Senior Center.
Sharon Brown, City of Fountain.
Phil Van Horn and Vita.
Gail Nels with Invita, and I believe Phil will be voted on at the next Board of Directors meeting, or was he already put on? I forget.
Did you send his letter?
I think we sent the letter. I don't know when exactly.
I don't think I've seen it.
All right, I will resend.
Thanks.
Victoria Sulcer with Silver Key.
Diana Van Auken, Teller Senior Coalition.
John Carroll, Special Kids, Special Families.
All right, Shkak Youssef, Special Kids, Special Families.
Keenan Gilcrease, Goodwill.
Okay, does anybody have any items for our next MCC meeting? Besides that Silver Key is going to be the great organization giving the presentation? Okay, then we will adjourn at 10:17. Thank you guys so much for coming today.
I might, this is not, doesn't need to go in the minutes. If any of you have contact with councilmen, county commissioners, elected officials, please press upon them the fact that we are still lacking representation from a lot of the municipalities on this particular committee. We've got great representation from City of Colorado Springs, City of Fountain, and all the HSPs, but we have very little from anybody else that's an elected official or a municipality. So if you know somebody that can appoint somebody in that regard, that would be lovely. Thanks.